What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to the brother Aaron for the donation to the channel via the PayPal. Much respect to you for showing love to Too Raw, and he leaves a uh, statement in question. My response to this situation. So he says, "I just read that the top 5 mafia movies of all time did not include The Godfather. Their first in the series. This iconic flick was actually rated at number 10. A Goodfellas flick was rated number 1. The 1990 flick. I can't understand this. The original Godfather with Brando has to be the standard and the greatest mafia movie ever made. Nothing comes close. Mike, what are your opinions and thoughts?" Um, I want to say that a lot of this stuff irritates me as a historian because we tend to see this as the years go on, generations fade away, new generations that have a lack of exposure and also a lack of history to things that came before them, before their era. These listings change. For instance, when I was growing up as a kid in the 80s and early 90s, when I saw listings of the greatest boxers of all time, at the top of that list were always two names, Sugar Ray Robinson and Henry Armstrong. Those are always the top two names. Now, I would offer and I would bet that the vast majority of boxing fans don't even know who Henry Armstrong was. And now, those lists would probably include Muhammad Ali at the top. And Muhammad Ali himself would tell you he wasn't the greatest boxer ever. He would say, maybe I was the greatest heavyweight, but I wasn't the greatest boxer. You know who the greatest boxer in his eyes was? His idol, Sugar Ray Robinson. And I would argue that before my time, if you go into the 70s and 60s and you ask who the greatest boxer of all time was at that time, I would say that Joe Louis was higher on the list. And I would say that if you ask who the greatest boxer was then, it was probably still Sugar Ray Robinson. But if you go back to World War II, then you'll see names like maybe Sam Langford. You would see Jim Jeffries. You would see higher on the list uh, uh, John L. Sullivan, uh, Peter Jackson, Jack Johnson. So a lot of this stuff is generational. Just a couple of years ago, when I was a kid, going back when I was a kid again, the greatest movie ever on most lists would probably be what's that movie's name? I'm blanking right now. Uh, what's the movie that Orson Welles did? Give me 1 second. Citizen Kane, yeah. Citizen Kane was considered the greatest movie. When I would look at these experts and they're talking, they would mention Citizen Kane. We had never seen a movie before like that in 1941. He was doing things that we hadn't seen before. Now, when I look at the greatest movies ever, it's not on the list, or if it is, it's like at the bottom 10. Now it's maybe movies like The Godfather or anything made after 1960. The Graduate or whatever. So all these things are generational. However, there's no excuse not to have The Godfather at or near the very top of the list. Me personally, you can make an argument that the second Godfather was a better movie, slightly better. But I think you have to put The Godfather first for a couple of reasons. If you go back to that time period, 1971-72, when this movie was made and when it came out, La Costa Nostra, or the mob, were much more influential than it was today. Matter of fact, they were so influential they had influences in the music industry, the movie industry, which is very relevant here. Um, Las Vegas, they ran Las Vegas. They had interest in legitimate businesses. Okay, they were individuals who were in the mob who weren't just head crackers and murderers. You had people who had head for business. They just was doing it in illegal ways, and you had mafia influence in politics, obviously. So they had a lot of power. But at the same time, the Italian community did not like this portrayal or this stereotype of all Italians as spaghetti slurping mafiosos. And paradoxically, neither did many people in the mob. So, uh, because of the fact that so many movies, even though they really didn't touch on the mob per se, but a lot of times you had mob movies or gangster movies, I should say, but they didn't really directly say they were Italian, but you know what I'm saying, it was there a little bit. You know what I mean? So because of that, and because this period coincided with the civil rights movement, other groups also wanted enlightenment when it comes to ethnic respect and portrayals. So you saw many people in La Costa Nostra spearhead the Italian American League and all these other organizations which were meant to help to push and promulgate a much more positive viewpoint of Italian Americans. So it's in this atmosphere that The Godfather was being made. All right. Now, Joe Colombo was a very powerful mafioso, the head of the now Colombo family, which I think used to be the Profaci family. Um, Joe Colombo was the guy behind the Italian, what is it, the American Italian, uh, whatever the hell the name of the damn league is. I just said it now, I just bubbled it up again. But he was the guy who was really the head of that Italian. Let me make sure I'm using the right term. Yeah, so he was the one. Yeah, 1970, Colombo he created the Italian American Civil Rights League. Ultimately, it was at one of these rallies. I think in 1971 it was where he was shot and left in a vegetative state in a hit, probably orchestrated by Crazy Joe Gallo. But anyway, I think he was followed up in leadership by Carmine Persico. But anyway, it was in this atmosphere that The Godfather was made, but if you remember in that movie, they never actually used the term mafia, and that was one of the prerequisites that was created in order for this movie to be made. And the script itself by The Godfather had to actually be approved by Joe Colombo. That's how powerful he was. So when you look at the significance of the Godfather, it was the granddaddy of mob movies. Um, Also, they didn't want these guys to be portrayed as savage animals. I think it was Albert Rudy. He was the one that let Joe Colombo look at the script and First, Joe Columbo was very against this movie, but then he saw it. He saw that Albert Rudy was an honorable dude. He made sure that the portrayals were fair. It showed that although they did do illegal things and they did commit crimes, including murders, there was some sort of rules. There was some organization there. There was a set of rules that they had to adhere to. There was some honor because even though Don Corleone would do certain things that were illegal, he had his limits. He still had a code, a personal code. Although some of the other ones, other family members, not family members, other people of the five families didn't, but he did. So there was that portrayal. Then the acting was top notch. You had Marlon Brando, so iconic. I think that movie helped to resurrect his career, which had been fading a bit from its peak in the 50s and early 60s. You had Al Pacino, who pretty much, that was pretty much his breakout role. Before that, I think he was a sensation on the theater stage, in the theater world, but at the movie screen, he wasn't known. Matter of fact, I believe the head of the studios, the head of Paramount, didn't want Al Pacino being portrayed because he wasn't very tall. He didn't think he was a leading man type. James Caan, that was his breakout role. You know, Robert Duvall. You know, Diane Keaton was in this movie. You know, Robert Castellano. You know, a lot of different players. So this movie was so iconic. Plus the Marlon Brando portrayal. I think we have to put that number one. Number two, in my opinion, would probably be The Godfather Part 2. After that, you could argue Goodfellas, 3, I would say. And after that, it's just a crapshoot. I think it's personal preference. I mean, you could put, you know, Casino up there. You could put Once Upon a Time in America. Donnie Brasco. I would say American Gangsta belongs up there. The Irishman. So many different movies, you know, after that. But me personally, I think the first two have to be The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. But The Godfather Part 3, not so much. Not so much. I'm trying to think of other movies. Scarface, of course. Scarface belongs on the list. The Departed. The Untouchables. You know, but that's the hierarchy, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, tell me what you guys think about this. Do you agree that The Godfather should be only 10th? I think that's bullshit. But tell me what you guys think.